Here we are, 10 years of this. It's wonderful. I just have a few announcements. We are at capacity, so if you have any of your materials at your seat or in a different seat, we are at capacity and might need a chair or two. So just as people come in, we will have more visitors. So it's, you direct them to an open seat if you see people wandering. But yeah, I want to thank Brad, Mary, Jill for helping me behind the scenes with this whole day. Joe, my counter, and also my power networkers and George and Lenny and people that put the last minute word out. I was so involved in kind of preparation of this, I didn't even get to market myself until Father's Day, but it's all good. I think you will be entertained. This is a wonderful deal story. It's a little twist from the last panel, and I think we'll kind of keep it light and formal. Feel free to ask questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand, pause a little bit, and we'll try to get a mic to you ASAP. So I'd like to introduce Joel, my friend that put this whole thing together with his panel, his group. Wonderful roll-up story, and Joel's going to do some introductions. Thanks.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and it's my privilege to present in front of you guys, and you're going to learn a lot about fire protection this morning, whether you like it or not. So it's an interesting space, and I think you'll understand why we as a firm have decided to invest in it. So just a little background, my name is Joel Grebenick. I'm one of the co-founders of a new private equity group in Minneapolis called Northern Lakes Capital. When we were assembling the group together to talk about this deal story, we wanted to bring together some of the key participants in the deal that got everything and made everything happen. So I'll probably hand it over to everyone. They can give a little bit of background on themselves, and then we can kind of kick it off from there.
Thanks, Joel. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to tell our story. My name is Chuck Bradley. I'm with Independence Fire Sprinkler Company. We are a water-based fire suppression contractor in the city of Philadelphia. So if you're a sports fan, on behalf of Philadelphia, I apologize. We started our business in 2009 and grew very rapidly. And we were very fortunate to have a great team of people surround us and get us to where we ultimately are sitting here with you all today. In 2017, we realized that there was a need for a fire alarm aspect to our business, and we started a fire alarm contracting division umbrellaed underneath the main suppression side. So I can tell you a little bit more about our story in detail, but we partnered with Joel Drew in Northern Lakes in May of 22, and we haven't looked back. It's been a great partnership. So thank you for allowing me to sit here with you all today.
Yeah, my name is Drew Haas. I'm a vice president at Northern Lakes Capital. Joined Joel as we co-founded the firm about 2 years ago. My background, I'm an accountant, so I spent about 10 years at Deloitte. I was a senior manager in the transaction advisory practice. And when I plopped my way into private equity several years ago, really my role at the firm, I spent a lot of time on the transaction execution side. So I can talk a lot about due diligence, all the different aspects we do there, as well as once we do own the business, kind of what we do from a portfolio management perspective.
And I'm Kyle McElveen. I'm a shareholder at Fredrickson and Byron in our M&A and private equity groups here in Minneapolis. So looking around the room, seeing a lot of friends, clients, cabin friends. So excited to be here. Fredrickson and myself were outside counsel for the Northern Lakes team on this deal, and as we'll talk a little bit about, quickly became teammates with Chuck as well the day after closing. And excited to be here talking to you guys. Joel called me a couple weeks ago and said, hey, it's a group of accountants. I said, great, you probably need somebody who doesn't understand numbers. So I'm here for that.
Quickly before getting into it, just want to give a shout out to, we have 5 interns this summer at Northern Lakes, and they all showed up here on time. So they're sitting in the back. The next couple of years, they'll be looking for employment after they graduate. So they're all really sharp people and great members of the team. So just a quick commercial on Northern Lakes. As I mentioned, we were founded in 2021. We really look to partner with family and founder-owned companies. We are investing out of our inaugural fund. It's a $210 million committed capital fund, raised primarily in 2022, and we did a final close at the end of 2022. So we have fresh capital to invest, but as in the last panel, it's a difficult time to invest for a lot of reasons, but we're really fortunate to have a committed capital fund and really excited about some of the companies that we've already partnered with. Top right quadrant, just investment criteria. As I mentioned, founder family-owned companies is where we focus. We're generally the first outside capital to really partner with that family or partner with that group. We have two fairly distinct investment strategies at Northern Lakes. One is about half our time is spent very geographically focused, which is Midwest companies. So we kind of define 10 to 13 states that we really spend a lot of our time going deep in the local markets there. The other half of the portfolio is what's relevant today is we do a lot of buy and build opportunities. So we'll identify an industry that we think is large, fragmented, is maybe in the early innings of a consolidation effort, and we will go proactively acquire businesses across the US and Canada within that sector. Really big range, 3 to 20 of EBITDA is where we spend a lot of time, which is a pretty massive range, but we have the ability to look at bigger opportunities as well. And then for add-on acquisitions, we'll go, assuming they're cash flow positive, we will go, and it makes a strategic fit for us, we will go pretty small from an add-on standpoint. Other bullet point, we invest in pretty basic businesses, high cash flow, high margin, really easy to understand. You can explain the business in 10 seconds. It's not a complicated SaaS-driven model. It's a really basic, you manufacture something, you provide a quality service, you distribute something is where we really spend a lot of time. And then the bottom right quadrant is we have two active portfolio companies. The top one, Guardian, is what we're going to be talking about today. We have a buy and build in the landscaping sector. We acquired a business in Connecticut to be our first partner company called EA Quinn. And then the third active buy and build is in the pavement marking sector, which is just kind of a fancy word to say road striping. We're big believers in infrastructure, and it's a way to play the infrastructure spend that's occurring in the country. So what is Guardian? So Guardian is it was created by Northern Lakes in 2021 as a holding company, really focused on the fire protection space. And Chuck can get into it in greater detail, but broadly defined, what is fire protection? Every built environment, that could be this country club, a hotel, university, hospital, requires certain type of fire suppression or fire protection systems. And so the sprinklers in the ceiling, the fire alarms, the panels, etc., that's all code driven and required based on whatever district you're in. So there's an installation element to the business, which we do, but then what's more interesting about the sector, what a lot of people like, is there's a recurring maintenance, inspection, testing element of the business. And assuming you can do the installation part correctly, our job that we try really hard is to sell the back-end service, the ancillary service on the back end once the system is put into place. So ultimately, that's what drew us in. There is the installation, which is more project driven, but where we really spend time and where the growing aspect of our business is on the service, inspection, testing, maintenance side of the industry. Ultimately, what we're looking to do is acquire 4 to 7. I think we'll probably get to 10 best-in-class fire protection companies across the U.S. and create a national platform. We'll get into it. We've been able to acquire 4 businesses, with Chuck's company being the number one. So we're off to a good start. We've really dug our heels in 2022 and 23 with really good activity, and our pipeline for additional add-on acquisitions in the space is quite robust. So we're really excited about it. The companies continue to perform well, and there's a lot of things to be excited about in that broader industry. And I will turn it to Drew. We can get a little bit more detail on kind of what drove us to the space.
Yeah, and so on this page, what we're showing here, kind of on the left-hand side of that slide, is just some kind of graphics for you to kind of get a sense for the market and how it's been growing over time. when we think about spaces we want to invest in, the larger the total addressable market is, the more interested we are. It's kind of an obvious answer or an obvious point to make, but at the end of the day, what that gives us is the opportunity for growth. Right? If we're investing in businesses that own 1% of the market share, then there's a lot more opportunity for us to keep investing and grab more of that market share for organic growth that we then couple with M&A activity and try to build the business that way as well. So as far as total addressable market, you can see North American fire protection market here, we're estimating is in kind of the low 20s and growing. What we are seeing is a lot of facilities, say built in the 50s or 60s, that didn't necessarily have a fire protection system, or it's an antiquated system. Now there's an opportunity to retrofit that facility with something more modern, up to date. So that's part of the market growth as well. And really just kind of broader macro factors that we're seeing. Think of California and the prevalence of fires you're seeing out there. You're starting to see growth of fire protection systems, not only in the commercial environment, but also into residential markets as well. So in the lower left, we kind of list out a bevy of photos. I know you can't necessarily read it, but at the end of the day, same as Joel mentioned, the commercial built environment everywhere has a fire protection system. Before we started, we were looking at the ceiling here. You can see there are sprinkler head kind of covers. There's alarm panels on the door. It's everywhere. So prevalence to us is just an indicator of demand. We like the ability to kind of go anywhere and sell our products and have that, again, more opportunities for revenue, more opportunities for growth. So prevalence is just a really big factor for us in choosing this industry as something we wanted to invest in. On the right, it's really somewhat of a summation of some of the points Joel also mentioned. Recurring revenue, again, that revenue stream is really unique. Once you have the installation of the system, and in many cases, we design the system that's being installed. So who's better to come back and do the inspections? Who's better to come back and do the service? It kind of allows us to have that natural cycle of revenue where the installation's just the first inning. And then innings 2 through 9 are where we keep coming back, servicing that system, and eventually upgrade that system. As some of the later points would say, evolving regulation, evolving technology, there's change, there's improvements. It's kind of a way for us to get our foot in the door and then have that sticky revenue relationship with our customer, the ultimate end user, for a longer period of time. A little bit more on fragmented market, why we like that and why it's important to us, especially in these buy and build strategies. At the end of the day, we like when there's a concept of somewhat regionality to the business. So sprinkler fitters, alarm technicians, they go and they do their work in the day and then they go home. So it creates this natural radius around your home base where Chuck and Kevin, their business in Philadelphia, they service that core market in Philadelphia and say northern New Jersey or somewhat adjacent states. But they're not competing with California. They're not competing with Seattle because that's just not where they play. So as we're doing this buy and build strategy, just the prevalence of all those different little regional pockets, we can take out a laser pointer. And it's kind of like playing Risk, the game on the map, where we want to fill in all those different beachheads of, hey, we have a presence in the Northwest. We have a presence in the West. We have a presence in the Southeast. And those businesses don't naturally compete with each other. There is an ability to work together where there could be some crossover of a national account, say in Philadelphia, all of a sudden says, gee, Chuck, I really like you. Can you work for me on a facility I have out west? Well, now he has a partner there with kind of local resources to do that work. Chuck can be the relationship, and then we're able to kind of help each other out as we fill in that map, having presence throughout the United States. So that's one of the reasons why we really like fragmented marketplaces, but also service businesses that have that natural radius in which they work. The other obvious kind of thing for us is just more M&A. It's more at-bats. If there's more businesses, more regional players, a lot of fragmentation in the marketplace that's ripe for consolidation, that just gives us more opportunity to go out there and find partners that want to sell, and B, people we like. Because that's an important part of the puzzle here. We want to work with people that are part of a cohesive organization and not necessarily be corrosive to our environment. So we spend a lot of time filtering through partners that make sense, not just buying fire protection companies for the sake of buying them. And the last 3 bullets on here are really just a summation of change, where there's evolution, where there's technology. There is some outsourcing efforts, say property managers that want to have all their fire protection needs, be it alarms, sprinklers, whatever, in one place. Just an ever evolving amount of change that just gives us more revenue opportunities. So we look for that in markets and where we want to keep investing our capital.
Great. So next slide is just kind of where we hunt. So in these buy and builds, we take a very proactive approach, and And I think in this day and age, I think in the last panel they said $3.7 trillion of capital out there. That's frightening for me in my position. That's a lot of competition. So if you're just sitting on your hands waiting for Piper Jaffray or someone to send you a book, you're going to be out of business pretty soon. So you got to be proactive with your approach, especially on the buy and build side. So we take a little bit different strategy. We go to market on a very direct basis as the company. So no one wants to hear from a bag of money. If I go out as Joel Grebenick from Northern Lakes Capital, I'm going to get a lot of no's and a lot of no one's going to respond. You get a lot of interest by saying Joel Grebenick, board member of Guardian Fire Services. So just that subtle change of how we go to market on the direct outreach side, our hit rate is significantly higher. Obviously, we talk to brokers. We generally spend time, not with the Lazards or Pipers. We spend time with local business brokers and really explain to them what we're doing in the space and what we're looking for. Our approach is being very rifle focused in terms of here's exactly what we're looking for. These are the company characteristics that we're seeking. Do you know of anyone? They might have a client that they had 3 years ago that never sold that they can try to re-engage and try to get that revenue for themselves. So it's anything to kind of spur ideas. Obviously, industry conferences, that's a really efficient way to see a ton of people. So we do a ton of prep work before an industry conference, probably send 500 emails and then send those same 500 emails again and again and again, and ultimately trying to garner 20 to 30 meetings. There's going to be more than half of those at least are going to be simple no's. A few of those might actually follow up to in-person meetings at their site, and that's what we're really looking to do. We utilize, for folks in the space, there's groups called buy-side firms, and these are investment banks technically that will represent us and we pay them a buy-side fee upon a successful closing of a transaction. We've utilized those firms in the past as we do buy and builds. And then, anyone that is an estate planner, lawyer, accountant, et cetera, anyone that has a client could potentially be a deal source for us. So we try to stay on top of all those groups and really communicate to them, here's what we're looking for and why. So quickly, I'm going to turn it to Chuck, and he can give you a little bit of background on Independence Fire out of Philadelphia.
Thanks. So a little bit of background on me. I grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs. Always had a passion for life safety and property protection. When I was in high school, I was volunteering with my local fire department, and I'm still there today, even though I don't have any time to help them out. But I had a couple mentors in life, and one of them, he was a fire protection chief of the Philadelphia Electric Company, which was bought out by Exelon in Chicago. And he came to me at like the age of 17, and he said, look, I'm telling you right now, this is an exploding industry that 10, 15, 20, 100 years from now is always going to be there. I mean, look, caveman had fire, right? Fire is a friend, and fire is obviously a foe. And to Drew's point, like everywhere you go, we're sitting here right now, there's sprinkler heads. If you look up, you see the white little caps. Common fallacy is that not every sprinkler head in this room goes off if there's a fire. Hollywood has destroyed that for us because we are the red-headed stepchild of construction. Everybody likes air conditioning and heat, especially on days like today, right? Everyone likes the plumbing when you can get rid of your waste and bring water into the building, but I've sat in more meetings where someone would rather spend $15,000 on a conference room table than a $3,500 price for life safety. And it's a shame, but it's reality. So our biggest tackle in life is to sell that you got to put yourself aside from the price and look at the life safety aspect. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to go home to our families, and even in our own homes, we do not want to be affected by the ravages of fire.
Pardon me, Chuck.
Sure.
I'm going to switch you up.
Thanks. Well, that's better. I don't like hearing myself talk, though. So I went to the police academy, and I thought I was going to be a cop and save the world, and I was in law enforcement for 10 years, and I kind of lost a bet to my wife when my daughter was born. So I went back into the fire protection market, and there's a 75, 80-year-old family-run company in Philadelphia, and their name is Oliver, and we won't say it anymore today. But they're the largest fire protection company in the city of Philadelphia. And today, this company does about $100 million in revenue. And they enjoyed years of having a great marketplace with no competition. They were very polished. They are a little bit polished now. But I started with them in 1990, and I was able to run up through the ranks with them as a salesperson, a project manager. And through the experience of touching clients and continuing education and just using these and not my mouth, grew myself into an entrepreneurial spirit where one day I knew I wanted to be a business owner, and I thought, hey, if the guy at the end of the hallway can do it, I can do it. So in 2007, I partnered with a friend of mine. His name's Kevin, and Kevin and I are 50-50s, and we were founders. And the beginnings, like, it was probably one of the most scariest moments of my life, walking into a $1,300 a month rented garage that we fitted out with an air conditioner on the wall and maybe some carpet on the floor and a pencil. And we put out that first email that said, hey, here's where you can find me now. And we were very lucky to make that transition without any type of resistance from Oliver and some of the other fire protection companies in Philadelphia that thought that we were stealing their business. We didn't have any no-compete contradictions that we had to worry about. And we just got on the ground and we just started running. So we are a union company. My business partner Kevin had grown up through the ranks of the Philadelphia Sprinkler Union. It's not a scary word, even though I know a lot of people can think it is. But because of being in the union, it afforded us the opportunity to work with high-end clients. And some of our clients are Boeing Helicopter. They have a large facility in Delaware County right near our office. Bristol Myers Squibb, Johnson & Johnson, Merck Sharp & Dohme, GlaxoSmithKline. We do a ton of pharmaceutical work. Children's Hospital Philadelphia, St. Mary's Medical Center, Trinity Healthcare. So we decided to find a niche to go towards the high-end opportunities, Lockheed Martin and King of Prussia in Morristown, New Jersey. So we're more of a defense, pharmaceutical, and healthcare fire protection vendor. And we found that those contracts were more lucrative because a lot of fire protection contractors and life safety professionals did not want to go into those entities because they did not want to be bothered with some of the side paperwork and other entities, regulatory commissions that you would have to vet yourselves with to be afforded the opportunity to work there. So I'm now up into like 2013, 14. We were doing like, I never thought I'd take our company more than $7 to $10 million a year in revenue. Always thought, hey, why don't I stay small and keep 30, 40% margins? There was a company in 2015 that went out of business in New Jersey, and that's really what generated our explosion. So they went out of business. We ended up hiring about 6 or 8 people from different departments in their company, and all of a sudden we saw our revenue go from 7 million to 14. We doubled in 1 year. And then from 16, 17 up to COVID, we steadily went up. We were like 16 million, 18 million. When we were introduced with Northern Lakes, I think we were doing about 19, and last year we jumped up to 22. So there is a very onward trend upward in the marketplace. We're fortunate. We grew ourselves to be the #2 fire protection vendor in the city of Philadelphia. And I get a little emotional, I'm sorry. Only because if you look at Philadelphia being Philadelphia is the 5th largest market in the United States. And if I'm the 2nd largest fire protection contractor with the 5th largest market, I guess I'm in the top 10 of the country. But I wear my heart on my sleeve, I'm sorry. But I'm very passionate about our company. Fortunately, we are surrounded by, right now we're up to about 85 employees, and a lot of dedicated professionals who just come to work every day, and we all share the common core culture of saving lives and protecting property. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants it, but everybody needs it. I kind of went off the script here. I didn't even look at the notes here. I'm sorry, but I think I pretty much covered everything. But we work with construction managers and general contractors in the competitive bid market, and that affords about 60 to 70% of our revenue. And so I handle the construction and the aspect of our company. And my business partner, Kevin, he handles the inspection, testing, and maintenance side, which affords about 30 to 35%. And I'm a dumb sprinkler guy. I'm going to be flat out. I like to think I'm smart. I did go to college. I got a degree, but I'm dumb. And I look at all you, and I want to pull from you because I was never really a smart business person. I could sell ice to an Eskimo. I could be passionate about fire protection and tell you how like you're going to die if you don't get it. But at the same time, when it comes to numbers and accountants, and we would have a CPA. Sorry, Joe. He'd pat me on the shoulder every year and say, "Hey, you guys are doing great." So I know we're going to get a little bit more into it when the M&A occurred, but I learned more about our business during the due diligence phase than I ever thought I would ever know about my business, and I think that is what really completed me, and it helped us make smarter decisions in the past 2 years to help grow our company. And with that, I'll say thanks.
So quickly, just on the deal process, and we can get into more details in a bit, but this is we try to outline some of the key kind of data points or key points along the timeline from initial conversation to close. And Drew and Kyle will get into a little bit more some of the vendors we engage and some of the puts and takes there. But this is a business that came to us through we directly have developed a relationship with a really small two-person investment bank out of Atlanta called Bristol Group. We communicated to them exactly what we're looking to do in fire protection, and we were fortunate enough that he had just signed up Independence Fire as a client. So we got introduced to Independence Fire through Bristol Group. I think the initial SIM or the initial materials we received on the company was in October of 21. A typical kind of path on the deal process. We submitted an indication of interest or indication of value in November. I flew out. I can't remember who was at the meeting, but I flew out to Philly in December of 21. We submitted an LOI in January of 22. We, a couple weeks of negotiation, really kicked off due diligence in February of 22. We really ramped up and turned on folks like Kyle and other folks in March to negotiate all the ancillary documents in the purchase agreement. The one wrinkle here, we probably would have closed sooner. As Chuck mentioned, they are part of a trade union, and they were going through a 3-year CBA renewal, and that obviously locks in a decent amount. Not all of our employees are a part of the trade union. On the service side, inspection side, those are non-union, and alarm side, those are non-union employees. But a decent amount of our employee base is a part of that trade union that really locks in your labor rates for the next 3 years. So we wanted visibility, as you can imagine, of, okay, what are we stepping into? Doing a deal, having an unfavorable negotiation for that renewal, and we got to live with a much higher labor rate for the next 3 years and beyond. So that was important for us to get that behind us before actually closing the deal. So delayed it probably a month or two, and then we ended up fortunate enough to close the deal in May of 17. And the one thing I probably should have let off with, when we in all of the deals we do, and especially in the buy and build, we're the majority equity owner at Northern Lake, so we take control, but that control usually is about 51 to 60%. We require the business owners to roll equity with us, and they're not owners anymore just in Independence Fire, they're owners of Guardian. So as we do subsequent deals, they now own they own the entire pie, and we'll get into in a bit why that's really valuable from a rollover standpoint, because they're not they're selling a part of a larger national platform that generally will get a higher multiple on the back end. So every deal we do, there's significant rollover equity. We want to align incentives. Chuck and his partner Kevin have an unbelievable amount of institutional knowledge in their head about running the business, and we don't want to lose that. So the best way to tie incentives is to continue to have them motivated to grow not only their own business but Guardian as a whole. And their Chuck's ownership in Guardian, he cares about the other companies we acquire. He wants to make them better because their success is his success from a dollar standpoint. We can go into a little bit more detail on the service providers that we engage, and I'll let Drew lead that.
Yeah, so just kind of a typical slate of advisors and kind of how we tackle the due diligence, both what we manage internally and what we would outsource and hire advisors to assist us in. Probably first and foremost in any deal, we start with quality of earnings and tax due diligence. In this case, it was Eide Bailey. That's usually where we focus our first month, easy, in getting through a quality of earnings and just making sure we have a good understanding of the financials that we're buying, the profile, etc. So that's usually where we start. I'll skip the best one, legal, save that for last year, but insurance, Brown & Brown is our partner here. They're the broker on the platform. On the first deal, it's a little bit easier. Usually what we do is we keep everything in place, kind of minimize the disruption. As we get into subsequent deals on the buy-build strategy, one of the really big incentives for us is to consolidate those types of programs and get benefits from that broader, insurance group. We're underwriting the broader platform, so we expect to get better premiums, both the property casualty side, but also employee benefits. It's a little tricky with the union. Not every employee is going to be a part of a benefit program, so there's only a few that would participate. We have a lower population that way, but generally speaking, insurance is a big part of it. Biggest thing, you can't close without insurance being active, and you can't have that disruption leading into a new partnership. So we spend a lot of time planning on the insurance front and also thinking through broader economics as we get into subsequent deals. But in this case, it's a little easier, keep everything in place. Environmental, very common for us in a construction business. It's usually pretty low-key, desktop type review. We usually outsource that, get a small report, kind of check box exercise. One thing that we do towards the end of the deal, and it's really impactful for us, is we'll actually do customer surveys, customer calls. We've been working with a firm, Rose Cognition, based in St. Paul for a long time, great group. What we do actually is towards the end of the deal, we'll put out a survey or get a contact with one of our top 10 customers at Independence and have them conduct kind of a, hey, how's it going? What's going well? Where could we improve? What do you see as kind of business for us for the next 12 months? Anything and everything you can tell me about Independence's performance. We'd love to hear about it so we can improve our service to you. We don't mention the deal. We don't say, hey, this is Northern Lakes is going to come in and partner with Chuck and Kevin. We really put it out there as more of a customer survey to get feedback from them on where things are going well, where we can improve. And that really gives us a lot of market intelligence. Usually we get 100 pages of, gee, here's everything that's happened at Children's or Boeing or any one of our customers. And it's been so helpful that many times we've done it at the deal close, and then we've done it again every year thereafter. It's just kind of a way to keep our pulse on our customers and make sure that there are service gaps, we fill them, but also figuring out what are we doing well so we can sell that type of service or mentality with project managers or other folks with boots on the ground elsewhere.
If I could interrupt you for 1 second. From an owner's perspective, I had a lot of reservations about, hey, what's going to happen when an outside firm starts calling our customers and they're asking questions about us. But what I will tell you is, in full circle, we got a report back, and it was easily 100, 150 page long, and I learned more things about my staff and me than I ever thought I would know, being boots on the ground, overseeing everything from a day-to-day operation. So it was a twofold experience, and it was very eye-opening to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I was glad that some of our clients were not just checking boxes and giving the answers that you thought would be received. And it was a great tool for us to go back to some of our project managers and field people to say, hey, look, we're going to improve, but not necessarily call them out, but at the same time use this as a tool to improve our efficiency. Thanks.
No, definitely. Background checks, check the box. Oh, sorry.
Just a quick question on that. If the company has a robust internal survey, would you rely on that, or do you get the validation from the external? How do you view that?
Yeah, good question. I would say it's rare that I've come across, at least in our lower into the middle market, we don't usually have an internal survey group that we would come across. It's just, the overhead is finite, and it's usually a pretty lean organization, so that'd be a rare occurrence for us. But if we did have it, I would certainly rely on it.
I think he's asking if the company has a survey already done.
If they're using digital engagement with their customers, post-service feedback, what's the school of thought of that versus having a third party do?
We would do it. We would have to use our third party firm. I mean, it would be helpful. I mean, we would certainly review it, but our job is to turn over every stone and we have a pretty rigorous process on due diligence, and every deal is different, but we generally try to do a similar playbook, and we would do our own. We conduct a survey based on our own hired person.
Do you include suppliers in that? You say customers, but what about surveying suppliers?
We have in certain instances. It kind of depends on just how important that supplier relationship is. I'm thinking, in terms of having like exclusive distribution rights. I know we've had certain instances where we'll reach out to vendors just to make sure that, hey, what is our relationship? How do you feel about it? Do you envision bringing any others into that marketplace? We have done it. We didn't do it in this deal specifically, but it is something
we've done. Certainly customers. So usually the top 10 or 15. We've done vendors, depending on the industry. Then we've actually done competitors, and try to get a sense on it. It's actually amazing. And the firm that we use, they get a lot out of people. I mean, it's amazing what people will just say, and they'll get them on the phone, and they're trained to pull more information out of individuals. So it's actually really beneficial. And I mean, we generally, after we close a deal, there's kind of a playbook of here's what we're going to do in the first 90, 180 days or whatnot. And a lot of to Chuck's point, a lot of them say, I love independence, but I wish they offered more alarm, or I wish they offered this service, or I wish they'd service better in North Jersey. That's a great roadmap to how we're going to grow. And a good example, the next deal we did in Guardian was a business based out of San Francisco, and they didn't offer alarm before. They were mainly just sprinkler on the wet side. And a lot of the feedback from customers were, we love these guys, they're awesome, great customer service, great value in terms of what they provide, but they don't offer alarm. So if they offered alarm, we would use them. Within 6 months of closing, we now have an alarm division. And that's a really easy roadmap to think about growth on the organic side.
I remember the deal after that, Nashville deal, we had customers saying, I got work in Chattanooga and I have work in Knoxville. If they're there, they can have it. So that to us was yet another example of, hey, there's that organic roadmap to let's open that Chattanooga office, let's open the Knoxville office, because here's the customer's coattails we can ride to get there. So it really is, it's become a powerful tool and something we deploy kind of right at the very end, usually, in the diligence process, just given the sensitivities, which are valid. So we'll kind of use that as kind of a final exercise, I guess, and comfort, and also just getting our plan together for what do we do once we close. Legal, I'll hand it over here.
I can pick it up when we talk about the pieces.
Oh, sure.
One other question though, do you do stock only, asset only, or a blend of both? In these deals?
Have you start over?
Do you consider asset only deals, stock only deals, or a blend of both?
Yeah, great question. Blend of both. Most prevalent today for us, and especially in this platform, I think every deal has been an F reorg. So an S corporation that we can't own, being institutional and just wouldn't check the box for what an S corp needs to be in ownership. You were an S corp. We'll do what's called an F reorg. I'm going to perjure myself if I explain the steps, but at the end of the day, it is an equity deal and the legal equivalent of a name change that will step into that new entity that will orchestrate. I'll let Kyle kind of give you a better synopsis, but yeah, F reorgs are very common, which is effective in equity deal. So that's been more prevalent for us. Just S corps are everywhere. That's been a common structure for small business.
Yeah, and I think the structure has been a little bit different too with this platform. I know Joel said at the beginning they like non-regulated, but this industry has a lot of contractors' licenses or specific licenses around it. And so when we're sitting down at the front end and just figuring out what that looks like, what's the least disruptive to the business, how do you do it, that's driven us towards a lot more equity deals with this platform versus some prior platforms where it was a different thesis, different things. We've definitely done more equity deals, or more asset deals.
Final thing here is just background checks. This is a pretty basic thing. We'll do background checks on certainly the owners of the business, the folks rolling over equity, and generally kind of the top, let's call it 3 or 4 individuals, kind of team members at the company, just to make sure we're covering, kind of turning over every stone. Next page is just seller's perspective. These are kind of 4 boxes that we came up with of what kind of went through and what Chuck and Kevin went through and how they kind of process selling their business and just kind of how their feelings throughout the process. So I'll turn it to Chuck and give an overview.
Thanks. So as I had said earlier, my partner and I were blessed with explosive growth in the Philadelphia market, and we really became a trying to think of the word, but a recognized entity and a real player. We weren't just a couple guys just that started a sprinkler company. And every day we were getting phone calls from brokers, private equity firms, strategic buyers. We were wooed in 2015 by the largest fire protection contractor or company, MCOR company in Ohio in 2015, and they wanted us to sell our recurring monthly revenue division with the inspection, testing, and maintenance of the systems, but they didn't want anything to do with the competitive bid. And basically, we're going to handcuff us to a point where we would be signing a no-compete clause, and then we'd be competing against them because we were trying to get the same work that they were. So we walked from that deal, and even though the guy did have a nice private jet. But every day the phone rang, and I'm the one that, I think, as I showed earlier, I wear my heart on my sleeve, where my partner's very more matter of fact. He's probably the best poker player you could ever play against. And I would be the one that would say, hey, this guy called, and to be honest with you, he's the one that got the call. And I was away on vacation. I came back and he said, hey, I got this call from this guy in Atlanta, John Marsh. Here's what he's proposing. And I was like, all right, well, you know what? Let's run it up the flagpole. I never even heard of private equity. M&A was not even in my vocabulary. So we weren't like 100% ready to sell, but it was always in the back of my mind and in my heart sleeve wearing entity that I am. I would say that I'm looking at legacy. So I'm a 50-year-old guy. I have a daughter. My business partner's 54. He has 4 daughters. My daughter wants hospitality management with the Disney company. His daughters want medical, business. Nobody want, and the other 2 are still in school, but nobody in the 5 heirs want anything to do with fire protection in the city of Philadelphia. So, candidly, why sell? I want to create this legacy where maybe 100 years from now, Independence Fire in the city of Philadelphia, partnered with Guardian, people are going to be like, hey, yeah, the guy, Kevin and Chuck, man, they started a really good thing back around 2009. And we're forever going to be on the map of life safety in the city of Philadelphia. And I think that was so important because, you know, I know our lawyers and our CPAs at the time would be like, don't get on the same airplane with each other and don't ride in the same car with each other. And people come along and be like, hey, yeah, that Chuck guy, he was a really nice guy, but what would have happened if him and I went down in an airplane crash, right? We probably would have finished our contracts. The wives would have fought with the CPAs and the financial guys, and it would have just been a memory. So from a legacy perspective, it's really heartwarming to me that we were able to partner and continue this legacy with the passion that we started. From a preparation standpoint, at first, a lot of it was driven by our CPA and our controller in our company. And then as we moved a little bit further, I realized that I was going to have to get more involved and learn a little bit more, as I said earlier, about the business side of the business. And we did. We put it out to market. So we went out, John Marsh went out to probably 20 or 30 PE firms and 1 or 2 strategic takeover competitors. And it was during COVID, so it presented a little bit of a challenge because there was a lot of Zoom calls and phone conversations. And the most important thing that Kevin and I wanted to do with picking a partner was to maintain the brand and integrity that we had started and continue the core values of how we started the company and pick a partner that wasn't just going to be in it to roll the money and look at the business side, but at the same time partner with us and share our values for a great culture. And I can tell you, we interviewed many, and I would hang up the phone and be like, if we do a deal with this guy, I'm going to die. Just from micromanaging, and as an owner, it's your baby, and you know you don't want to give up the keys to the ranch. And it is a very tough decision, but to find a group that will partner with you, guide you, mentor you, but at the same time not stand over top of you and say, you got to do it this way or else, So fortunately, with the partnership that we have here with Northern Lakes, they told us from day one, look, we don't know anything about fire protection. Just keep doing what you're doing. Just, if you run into an obstacle, by all means, we're here for you. And it allowed us to really have this vision that we wanted to be a player in Philadelphia, and we were a player, but we had this company doing $100 million a year in revenue, and we're doing 20. Like we wanted to grow, and we wanted to do 30, 40, and we wanted to take every opportunity we could to just continue the growth of the company. And then on the last slide section there, the communication with employees. We had a little bit of an obstacle. You guys probably never even heard this story, but we had a company Christmas party, and being in construction, it's great to have that polished Christmas party where you can have a beautiful event at a venue such as this. But we're all out in our fabrication shop on a Friday before. Did you know this story? It's clean. It's clean. We're all in our fabrication shop on a Friday afternoon, and maybe Christmas is like a Monday, Tuesday, or something, and we get like a couple cases of beer, some meatballs, chicken marsala, Caesar salad, and just throw it out there. And everyone just tells stories, and there's a little potluck going on, and everyone's just having a good time. And probably after about 6 or 7 beers too many, my senior project manager comes up to me and says, "You guys selling?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "You guys selling?" And I said, "Well, we're out there looking to partner with the right partner to grow this company and really be a dominant force in the Philadelphia market." Like, I was trying not to lie. And he goes, "Well, here," and he holds his phone up, and there's an advertisement on bizbuysell.com or something like that, or some of the private equity firms. And apparently through the Bristol group, and I think John was really upset by that and embarrassed, because we had told them confidentiality was paramount. And it came from our competition. And that's what was the most terrible part about that, was that it was on the street, and the rank and file knew. And I couldn't stand there and lie to them. I mean, it was right there. 2 buildings right by Philadelphia International Airport, $20 million a year fire protection sprinkler company, and there's no other fire protection sprinkler companies right next to Philly International Airport. So I had to do a lot of tiptoeing through tulips, but we basically did come out to the rank and file and say, look, we're looking for partners to grow the company. I downplayed doom and gloom, but at the same time, the communication with employees actually started back around December, even before we got our letter of intent. And at that point, it could have just fizzled if the letter's intent didn't come to fruition. So when we did make the final step, and we did sign the deal, and everything happened on May 17, 2022, we went to our employees, and we kind of thought a couple different avenues, like, do we have Joel and Drew come in and make like a big announcement? But at the same time, we didn't want to scare anyone, so we all came with the decision that, hey, look, Kevin and I will go around to the individual departments, and we'll just do it individually. And we sold them on, look, this is a partnership, it's going to help all of us, and this is not us checking out. We're going to still be the same Independence Fire that we've always been, and it just came to fruition. And we never looked back, because the employees never saw a change in the flow of operation, and that was very important. The other thing that helped in the communication was with our customers, and I think Drew had brought that up earlier. We have a pharmaceutical company. We do a lot of work at Merck and Johnson & Johnson with this construction manager. And he had a pharma project down in Nashville. And, they were getting 3 bids, competitive bids on large projects in the Nashville sector. And after we partnered with Northern Lakes, and then Jarrett Fire in Nashville started coming into the conversations, I went to them and said, look, we have a partner down in Nashville that is a prototype of us. Same culture, family-run business, great people, will adhere to your schedule, will get it within your budget, and now they're doing all their work. In the past 6 months, they're doing all their work in Nashville, and it's been a great partnership. It's because back then they were just another number. You know, hey, we got a number from Jared blank blank, but now there's a face behind the name. So it definitely was full circle for customers and employees.
Quick question.
Sure.
How are you doing that from a branding perspective? So you have your Independence Fire, you've got Guardian Fire. Is it Independence as a part of Guardian, or how are you doing that marketing to your customers and more broadly?
Yeah, so our whole thesis is we don't rebrand. And, you know, right now, Guardian Fire, I would guess there would be no customer, probably even employee that knows Guardian Fire exists.
Okay.
It's a brand that we obviously have debt to finance our deals. We go to market as Guardian, and when we ultimately exit the business, we are selling Guardian Fire. You know, I think over time, and this could be over a 10 to 15 year period, I could see Independence Fire, a Guardian Fire family company, something like that to incorporate that oversight brand. But, you know, in the local markets, it's Independence Fire, it's RCM Fire Protection, it's Jared Fire, it's Nord Fire Protection. And we think it's a miss that a lot of bigger companies do. You know, day one they rebrand, and you know these companies have a lot of goodwill in those markets. I mean, they know Independence. The employees have a ton of pride working for Independence. So we think it's a miss that you would want to, you know, day one lose that. I mean, it's part of what you're buying in the good part of the business.
Okay, just
Chuck, I was wondering how many LOIs did you end up with, and why did you end up going with Northern Lakes, and were they the highest bidder?
They were not the highest bidder. They were the most competent bidder. We probably got 2 LOIs, but we at the same time shunned some of the offers even before it would get. We got verbiage from our broker that an LOI was being generated, and we started getting intel on what the number was and what the terms and conditions were, and we basically just said, no, you know what, don't even bother. So we partnered with these guys because I trusted them. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys walked in and they did not disrupt our life. They were stern but passive, but at the same time, they were true to their word. And everything that they told us during the engagement happened after the honeymoon, and never gave us a reason to second guess our decision.
It's a happy marriage.
So far, no, I'm just kidding.
Have you hit 7 years?
Ask my wife that, it's 29. So I got 4 redos.
Drew, you want to talk? Oh, was there another question? Go. 5 minutes. Oh, okay. We got 2 slides left, so we'll go.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit. So just some interesting pieces of this, being the first deal of the platform. So especially as an external advisor, we've done a couple of roll-ups with these guys now, but it's a Chuck and I were joking about this earlier, that you know Chuck basically has a voodoo doll of me during the course of the deal because I'm the face of negotiating against him. Like, he gets a 200-item diligence request list that's coming from me. He sees markups of documents that are, you know, not favorable to him or perceived as not favorable to him. Like, that's coming from me. And then the day after closing, we're on the same team. Like, Chuck and Kevin are now the management team for a portfolio company. We're talking to them, working with them on business things. So the kind of that partnership element, and you guys talked a lot about it from the business side as well. But even as an external service provider, it's really keeping in mind throughout the whole course of the deal that like, we're an extension of the Northern Lakes team. So if we go in and try to, you know, roll Chuck and Kevin in their council and we're jerks and we're all that, that's going to do serious damage to that relationship. And that's true with every deal in the roll-up. And with the first deal, the other thing that we're talking about on our side during the negotiation is that everything we agree to is really precedent setting. So when we get to, you know, deals 2, 3, and 4, which we've done now here, you know, we can't now all of a sudden go negotiate a significantly different deal with the 4th deal, because when they all get in a room together, like Chuck can't find out that somebody else got X because it's going to kind of disrupt that whole balance. So, you know, getting past kind of the technical legal aspects of it is really just this really pragmatic. It's a roll-up strategy. It's a precedent-setting first deal, and so being mindful of getting a deal done and getting a good deal, but also that whatever we agree to here is going to really inform what we can do down the line.
Yeah, all true, and I'll just briefly a couple just diligence obstacles we ran into, nothing atypical, but union, being a union employer, collective bargaining agreement was coming up for renewal. We obviously wanted to see that process out to fruition, so we knew what kind of labor rates we were walking into because unions are just different. So you just want to get used to kind of whatever the labor rates are going to be, what the escalations look like over that period, just so that we were informed enough to kind of make that into our model. And so we're not going to our lender with a year later with egg on our face saying, gee, I was wrong, it was $15 an hour, not $2. Nobody wanted that. So we took the extra time to go through the CBA renewal process and kind of work that into all of our different facets of the deal. Not to get too deep in the weeds in my accounting nerd brain here, but it's very common for us to do transactions with groups like Truck Kevin where financials are cash basis. It's a practical point of view, right? Cash basis is tax basis, so they're kind of generating those financials predominantly just to be able to do their taxes at the end of the day, maybe for an insurance purpose, one or two along the road, maybe a permitting purpose, but really not to banks, not to institutions, not to outside investors. So we had to go through that process during diligence to say, okay, you have cash basis, that's great, but what's GAAP? What's accrual? And kind of re-imaging those financials so that we could bridge the two. And what did that change in our financial profile? Here in this instance, we're talking about a contracting business. 50-70%-ish of that revenue is coming from fixed bid contracts. So we have to do, what my fellow accountants will probably identify with, is kind of a restatement of the revenue recognition. Had to go back and say, all right, we need to deploy percentage of completion accounting as if you were accrual and restate all those years of history to say what's the difference. Chuck hated it. Right? It's a really hard process to go through because it's very data hungry, it's very mechanical, it's very mathematical, and the challenge with it too is it's all predicated on estimates. It's how do I think I'm going to do on a children's hospital job today and restating that reality over the past 3 years. So not only are you reliant on the estimates from the boots on the ground and Chuck and the project managers and need to get comfortable with that, then we have to feed the data and all those qualitative factors into the machine and restate financials to reflect it. And then being able to communicate that clearly to banks, to co-investors, to our investment committee, Northern Lakes Capital, and any other constituents. It's a process. It takes time. So that's a common thing that we've seen in this first deal, and frankly every deal thereafter in the Guardian platform.
I can quickly run out of time. Just quickly in closing, just here's the map of Guardian Fire today. Obviously, the star in the southeast corner of Pennsylvania is Independence Fire. We've been successful in closing on 3 subsequent deals. A business in California called RCM Fire Protection. In September of 22, we closed on a business in Nashville. In December of 22, called Jared Fire. That market's growing like a weed, so it's been a great acquisition for us. And then most recently in March of 23, we closed on a business called Norrid Fire in Monroe, Louisiana. We're doing work. We provide a full suite of fire protection services, about 250 employees, 175 infield technicians. Very busy on the M&A front. We have 2 deals under letter of intent. Pipeline is full and continues to fill. A lot of organic growth plans, opening greenfield offices. About 50 to 60% of our EBITDA is driven by ITM, so it's really driven by service, which is attractive from a consistency standpoint, and when we go to exit the business, should be pretty attractive to the private equity community. And part of our job now is to build a Guardian oversight team. So we hired a CEO a couple months ago. We will be promoting several people from the operating companies, kind of the partner companies, up to that Guardian team. And then also filling in the holes and bringing in some other firepower to help the oversight of Guardian. So that's it. That's the Guardian story, and happy to answer if we have any more time, any questions you guys may have.
Do we have any questions from the interns?
Well, thank you, Joel and team. Chuck, you got it off easy. Thought you'd get a couple.
I told him to throw me softballs.
Well, thanks again. You didn't let me down with the story. It was excellent. I've got so many more questions to ask you afterwards. And I think we'll take a little break, 10, 15-minute break, come back with our last panel of the day, Dealmaker panel. As you can see, the trend has gone from big picture to national, regional, and I think now we'll focus a little bit more on our marketplace here. So, thank you.